Yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders faced off against the Denver Broncos in a crucial matchup. It was a game that had the potential to change the course of their season. If the Raiders had managed to win, they would have been sitting at 3-2, a solid record considering their new quarterback and offensive coordinator. A 3-2 record would have put them in a good position to push for the playoffs. But things didn't go as planned. Instead, the Raiders came up short. In this video, we're going to discuss the biggest issue I saw during the game. This problem, if not fixed, could seriously impact the rest of their season. Today's focus will be on Luke Getsy and why he is currently one of the worst offensive coordinators in the NFL. We'll talk about why the Raiders need to consider moving on from him, and how, if they don't, no quarterback, even if they switch to Aidan O'Connell, will be able to succeed under his play calling. Let's look at what happened when Aidan O'Connell took over. At the time, the score was 10-20. The game wasn't a blowout, and the Raiders had a chance to come back. If they had scored a touchdown, the game would have been 2017, putting them right back in it. But instead, because of poor play calling, the Raiders ended up going 3-and-out. The Broncos then scored again, extending their lead to 27-10. The first drive after that, O'Connell threw a pass that got tipped and intercepted. The Broncos capitalized and scored another touchdown, making it 34-10. At that point, it felt like the game was slipping away. And the Raiders' offensive game plan, led by Getsy, continued to show the same questionable decisions. Even at the beginning of the game, the Raiders were up 10-3 and had a chance to extend their lead. But then a pick six flipped the entire momentum. The game plan seemed flawed from the start. Let's break down the very first drive of the game. The Raiders came out and ran a screen pass to the left, which only gained 3 yards. On the next play, they ran the ball and lost a yard, putting them in a 3rd-and-8 situation. There was no rhythm or flow. They called 2 basic, ineffective plays. Even the run didn't make much sense. It looked like an outside zone run that lost them yardage. Now they're in a tough 3rd-and-8. Most teams don't convert these situations unless you have an elite quarterback like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Luckily, Gardner Minshew scrambled and picked up the first down. But the play design itself wasn't great. Then, on the very next play, Minshew threw a deep pass to Brock Bowers, who made a fantastic catch and took it 50 yards to the house, putting the Raiders up 7-0. While the Raiders got lucky on that play, it's important to note that the first few plays of the game were not good. After 2 ineffective plays, they were bailed out by Minshew's running and Bowers' ability to make a big play. Moving on to the second drive, the Raiders were still up 7-0, but the drive started poorly with a 1-yard pass and then a run that went for no gain. This left them with a 3rd-and-9. Again, not a favorable situation. Most teams don't convert on 3rd-and-long consistently. Minshew bailed them out again by picking up the first down, but the offense was already showing signs of struggle. Throughout the second drive, the Raiders did manage to connect on an 18-yard pass to Jacoby Myers and had a couple of good runs. However, a false start penalty by rookie tackle DJ Glaz put them in a 2nd-and-15 situation, stalling their momentum. Now let's talk about what happened on the 2nd-and-15 play. This is a prime example of why Luke Getsy's coaching is such a problem. If you watched closely, you'd see 2 tight ends at the bottom of the screen, and they ended up running straight into each other. Imagine being the quarterback in that situation. An average NFL play doesn't last more than 7 or 8 seconds. The ball is usually out in less than 2.5 seconds. If Gardner Minshew is looking to his right and sees his 2 tight ends running into each other, that 2.5 seconds is going to fly by very quickly. This kind of miscommunication is something you'd expect in high school football, not at the professional level. It's already week 5 and players are still getting in each other's way. That's a coaching problem. And there's more to it than just calling plays. Being an offensive coach isn't just about reading plays off a sheet. It's about installing the playbook, teaching each player their role, and making sure they know what they're doing on every snap. Getsy has repeatedly shown that his offensive concepts are poorly spaced, leading to confusion among the players. They're not just running the wrong routes, they're literally running into each other. That's on the coach, not the players. Now, let's move on to what happened after that failed play. The Raiders were forced to check down on 2nd-and-15, and then on 3rd-and-long, they only picked up a few yards, settling for a field goal and making it 10-0. Sure, the false start by DJ Glaz hurt that drive, but the overall execution and play calling didn't help either. On the next drive, we had a 40-yard run by Amir Abdullah, putting the Raiders in a great position to score again. We mixed in some good runs from Madison and a few solid passes to Brock Bowers, bringing us to about the 4-yard line. But instead of scoring a touchdown and potentially going up 17-3, the Raiders threw a pick six to Patrick Surtain. Some say Minshew missed Brock Bowers and tried to force the ball to Jacoby Myers, but I think Minshew was aiming for Bowers the entire time. However, because there was a defender right in front of him, he had to throw it over the defender's hands, which made the pass sail too high. It ended up going over Bowers' head, and the defender picked it off. Critics might ask why Bowers didn't reach for the ball, but if you know there's another route concept behind you, you're trained to let the ball go if you don't think it's meant for you. That's why Bowers didn't go for it. This miscommunication could have been avoided with better play design. The play itself was poorly thought out. The Raiders were running a power play action, pulling the guard to the right while Minshew rolled to the left. That part was fine, but trying to fit 3 receivers into such a tight space near the goal line was a mistake. There were 6 or 7 players standing around the same area, making it almost impossible for any of them to get open. For a play like that to work, you need more field space, at least 25-30 yards. At the goal line, this play had no chance. If Jacoby Myers had just run across the back of the formation instead of whipping back to the left, it might have created better spacing. Instead, all 3 receivers ended up bunched together. This is a clear example of bad play calling by Luke Getsy. Nothing you say can convince me that it wasn't a coaching error. Minshew could have tried to find a way to get the ball around the defender, but that's easier said than done when you're staring down a big defensive lineman right in front of you. If you still think this is entirely on Minshew and that the offensive coach isn't responsible for the play design, I urge you to reconsider. The Raiders' offensive structure has a glaring flaw, and if it's not fixed soon, the season could go downhill quickly. If you think the only issue for the Raiders is Gardner Minshew, you're in for a shock when Aidan O'Connell takes over. I've watched Luke Getsy since his days with the Chicago Bears, where I covered the team on the Football Scout channel. I make videos and watch film for a living, and the Bears are one of the teams I've followed for the past 2 years. I've seen enough of Getsy's coaching to know his tendencies. Right now, he's simply not a good coach. On the next drive after the interception, the momentum clearly shifted, but the same issues kept popping up. For example, on a 3rd and 8 play, Gardner Minshew threw a perfect pass to Jacoby Myers on an in route, but Myers dropped it. If he had caught that pass, it could have changed the entire momentum of the game, possibly leading to more points and shifting things back in the Raiders' favor. Drops have been killing the Raiders all season. Earlier, it was Davante Adams with 3 or 4 drops. Jacoby Myers had a drop last week against the Browns that hurt us, and now he drops another crucial pass on 3rd and 8. It's frustrating because that drop could have set up a scoring opportunity and given us a chance to regain momentum. If that wasn't bad enough, on the next drive, we had a 3rd and 5 situation. It was a great drive up to that point. Minshew made some good throws, and the offensive line opened up some running lanes. But then, on 3rd and 5, we ran the football and only picked up 3 yards. That left us with a 4th and 2, and we punted. Some people blame Antonio Pierce for running on 3rd and 5 and then punting on 4th and 2, but I'm not sure if Pierce even had a say in that moment. Luke Getsy is in charge of play calling, and I don't think Pierce can just override him on every play. When it came time to punt on 4th and 2, that was a decision Pierce probably made, and I'm okay with that. But running on 3rd and 5, that's on Getsy. It doesn't make sense to run the ball when you're trying to convert a manageable 3rd down. If you fail to convert on 3rd down, the field position won't change much if you end up punting from 4th and 5 instead of 4th and 2. The bigger issue is not even attempting to get the 1st down with a pass. This problem goes back to Getsy's overall offensive philosophy. Let's look at some examples from past games. In the preseason, Aidan O'Connell had a good drive against the Vikings' first-team defense. But then, near the 4-yard line, 2 receivers ran into each other, and O'Connell got sacked. This kind of mistake should have been cleaned up early in training camp, not showing up in preseason games. But the same issues carried into the regular season. In the first game, Zamir White thought the play was going to be a toss, but the quarterback tried to hand it off instead. There was a clear miscommunication, which led to a messed-up exchange and the play getting blown up. Later in the same game, there was a run-pass option where Gardner Minshew tried to throw quickly to Davante Adams. Adams ran a hitch route, but didn't expect the ball right away, leading to another miscommunication. Minshew fumbled while trying to pull the ball back, giving the Chargers a short field and essentially handing them 3 points. These are the kinds of errors that should be ironed out before the regular season even starts. But they continued through weeks 2, 3, 4, and now week 5. It's the same story each week. Miscommunications and poor play designs are hurting the Raiders, and it all comes down to Getsy's coaching. Let's look at the design of this play. Think about the spacing here. One receiver is running deep, while another is running a deep out route towards that same receiver. How can you expect the quarterback to throw the deep out when there's no way it's going to get open? There's also a third receiver in the general area, making the spacing even worse. This type of confusion and poor route spacing has been a problem since week 2, and it showed up again in the most recent game. In the worst-case scenario, the quarterback throws a curl route, while Davante Adams runs an out route, leading to an interception. Or Jacoby Myers runs a curl, but the quarterback throws an out. These types of mental mistakes keep happening, and it's frustrating to watch. This is Luke Getsy's offense. He wants multiple options on every play, including choice routes and run-pass options. But when the quarterback throws a back shoulder pass while the receiver runs deep, it's clear that the players aren't on the same page. That's not even mentioning the terrible spacing and receivers running into each other or running plays that don't make sense in crucial situations like on the goal line. For example, having 3 receivers run similar routes toward the same side of the field. How does that help anyone get open? These are things an offensive coach should have under control, and it should be fixed well before the regular season even starts. Last week, we faced Myles Garrett, and we did chip block him on some plays. However, we mostly chipped him with the right tackle while leaving him one-on-one on other plays. Why not double-team Garrett more frequently? He's the one causing havoc, not their third-string defensive end. But it seems like Getsy's offensive scheme doesn't account for those kinds of adjustments. It's almost like he calls the plays and hopes everything falls into place, which clearly hasn't been working. At this point, the best move for the Raiders would be to fire Luke Getsy and hand over the play-calling duties to another assistant. I'm not sure who that would be, maybe Marvin Lewis or Joe Philbin. But something has to change. Getsy's offensive strategy is the biggest issue the team faces right now, not Antonio Pierce or the other coaches. You see other quarterbacks who were considered busts thriving with new offensive coordinators. Derek Carr is doing well with the Saints, Sam Darnold is finding success with the Vikings, and Baker Mayfield is having a resurgence with the Buccaneers. Why? Because they have coordinators who know how to use their skill sets effectively. The offensive coordinator is often more important than the quarterback. It's not even close. Gardner Minshew had a lot more success last year with the Indianapolis Colts under Shane Steichen's system. Yes, he made mistakes, but they weren't as frequent or as severe. It's much worse with the Raiders, and I think it's because of the poor design and execution of Getsy's offense. The season isn't over yet, and if the Raiders can replicate what they did in the first 18 minutes of the last game for a full game, they'll win more games. But that's a big if. Minshew is inconsistent. He's great when he's confident, but once he loses confidence, it's all downhill from there. Maybe Aidan O'Connell can provide more stability at quarterback. The Raiders should at least try making the switch and see what happens. If O'Connell struggles too, then it's time to consider a change at offensive coordinator. I hope you enjoyed this video. These are just my thoughts and opinions, and I could be wrong. If I am, I'll admit it. If you liked this video, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.